In this tutorial we are going to add glue flaps, dust flaps, and a tuck flap to the cube box that we created in a previous tutorial. Some of the key takeaways from this tutorial will be the different methods you can use to move the active point, how to copy and paste flaps, how to chamfer the flaps corners, and how to set up sequential folding of the flaps. So, if you're ready, let's get started. To begin, if you haven't already opened the previous drawing, make sure you have it open and set to the construction view. Double-click on the cube's left side panel and right-click on the top edge line, then, select Add Line and Add Basic Flap. Press the period key to open the Precision Input dialog and enter 25 mm. Press OK. We now have our first glue flap. Double-click on our new section to make it the active section. Then go to this point and left-click on it to make it the active point. Zoom in a little bit using the mouse wheel if you need to. If you go over to the active point controls in the Property Inspector, you can see that the X property is set at 0 mm from the left end. Change this setting to 10 mm to give the flap a sloped side. Go to the other side and left-click this point to make it active. Now when you look at the active point settings, you can see that the X property is 200 mm. Change that to 190 mm. Now there is a 10 mm offset on both ends of the glue flap. Undo the last step so I can show you another way to move active points. Left-click on this point again and use the Ctrl-Z shortcut keys to undo. Right-click, and select Drag Point. Click and hold down the left mouse button while you drag the point around on the screen. If you hold the Shift key down while you drag the point, it will align horizontally or vertically. Notice as you move it around you can see it lock into alignment with the next or the previous point. Again, undo the last step, but this time by going down here to the taskbar and clicking on the undo button. Still another option that we have to locate points is to use grid snapping. First, we need to click on the grid button to make the grid points visible. Again, right-click on the active point and select Drag Point. As you move it around you can see it will snap to the grid points. You can change the grid spacing using the Grid Spacing dialog. Right-click on the grid button to bring it up. For this example, we want the spacing set to 5 mm. Change it if you need to and press OK. Now let's move this point again. Drag it to the grid point that is 10 mm from the right end. Your glue flap is now finished. Turn off the grid points and zoom out if needed. You can go through the same process to add the remaining glue flaps, but it is much faster to use the copy and paste method. Left-click on the glue flap to make sure that it has the focus. Use the Ctrl-C shortcut keys to make a copy. Double-click on the cube's left side panel, right-click on the bottom edge line. Follow that by the Ctrl-V shortcut keys to paste the new glue flap. Notice the outline for the new flap will move above or below the fold line depending on where you move the cursor. Left-click to place the flap when the outline is below the fold line. Since the glue flap is still on the clipboard, you can paste copies on both the top and bottom edge of the cube's right side panel. Use the same process as you did in the previous steps to place these flaps. Very good, you should now have all 4 glue flaps. Double-click on the left side panel again to make it the active section. This time you want to add the dust flap to the end of the panel. Right-click on the line and use the LF shortcut keys to create the flap, followed by the period key to open the Precision Input dialog. Make the height for this flap 50 mm. Type in the dimension and click OK. Zoom in a bit if needed. Double-click on the new dust flap to make it active. You need to clip the outside corners of this flap. To do this, right-click on one of the corner points and select At Point, Chamfer Corner. Or you can use the shortcut keys P and C. You can adjust the chamfer by sight. Or you can hit the period key, which we will do to open the corner dimension dialog. Set the dimension to 30 mm and click OK. Now that you have the first corner chamfered, you can use the Ctrl-R shortcut keys to repeat this operation. Most of the freeform procedures can be repeated using these shortcut keys. Double-click on this flap again to make sure it has the focus. Use the same copy and paste methods as we used before to add the dust flap to the end of the right side panel. To complete our box, we need to add a tuck flap to the end of the lid flap. Double-click on the lid flap, right-click on the top edge and select Add Line. Add Basic Flap. Open the Precision Input dialog and set the height to 35 mm. Press OK. Use the same methods as we used on the dust flap to chamfer the corners. Only this time, just drag out the corner dimension of the first point. Zoom in a bit if needed. Click the left mouse button to complete the action. Go over to the other corner and use the repeat command. And that gives us our finished cube design. Now in the Property Inspector, Active section, we are going to set up the fold sequence. The sequence number sets the order in which the box will fold up. Currently all the flaps are folding at the same time, which is okay, but doesn't really let you see how the box is assembled. By default, the fold sequence number is set to 1. You can change the order for the active section using the fold sequence slider. First double-click on the bottom panel and set the fold angle to 0, because we don't want it to fold up at all. Looking at the cube box in construction view, imagine how you would fold it together. I'm going to leave the glue flaps set at the default setting so they will be the first to fold up. Next I want the two sides to fold up, so I'll set their sequence number to 2. Followed by the front and back, their number should be set to 3. The dust flaps need to fold in next, so set them to 4. Fold down the tuck flap at number 5. Then finally the lid flap is set to number 6. Now it's time to view your box in 3D. In the View options, click on the 3D radial button. The sequence numbers we just set also represent the number of fold stages required to completely fold your box. In the folding control options, move the staging slider to the left to change the number of stages. You need at least 6 stages to match the highest sequence number. In the preview pane, use the mouse, pan, rotate, and zoom controls to reposition the unfolded cube if needed, to a good folding position. Go back over to the folding control and hit the play button to watch the cube fold. Take this opportunity to view each section as it folds. If you notice something isn't folding correctly, you can go back to construction view and make changes if needed. You now have a completed cube box. And this is the end of this tutorial.